The jungle was silent. Not a single bird call or rustling leaf. Dr. Elena Cruz stepped carefully, her boots pressing into the damp soil. She wasn't alone. Something moved fast through the trees. Low to the ground, sleek and aware. It wasn't supposed to be alive. Velociraptors belonged to history books and bones. But now one watched her from the shadows, eyes sharp as blades. Its claws flexed. Not wild. Not lost. Just waiting. This wasn't just a discovery. It was a warning. They hadn't just found a raptor. They had entered its territory. And it wanted them to know. Dr. Elena Cruz had dedicated her life to unlocking the past. She spent years dusting off bones in sun-scorched deserts and decoding DNA strands in frozen labs. Her latest mission took her deep into the heart of Isla Faro, a newly discovered island off the South American coast. Hidden by mist and protected by treacherous cliffs, it was untouched by civilization. Rumors had surfaced of unusual activity there, strange noises, claw marks on trees, shadows that didn't belong. Leading a small team of paleogeneticists, field biologists, and ex-military guides, Elena arrived with one goal: to investigate the claims that something prehistoric might still live in isolation. They set up camp near a dense forest where satellite scans had picked up unusual heat patterns. Elena believed it might be a hoax, or perhaps unknown species of birds or reptiles. She didn't expect to find proof of a predator thought extinct for over 70 million years. By the third day, the forest revealed signs: deep three-toed tracks along the riverbank, large nests made of woven leaves, bones stripped clean. Elena collected samples and analyzed droppings that resembled those of carnivorous dinosaurs. The data was strange. High levels of ancient proteins were present, similar to what they had extracted from fossilized remains of dromaeosaurs. Still, she couldn't believe it. Science had come close to resurrecting ancient species, but no one had ever succeeded fully. Not without consequences. That night, strange sounds echoed near their camp. A low hiss followed by rustling branches. Weapons were checked, lights were aimed, but nothing came close. The group was on edge. Elena's heart beat faster with a mixture of fear and excitement. Was this really happening? On the morning of the fifth day, she and her assistant, Theo, ventured deeper into the jungle. Fog wrapped around them, and vines coiled like serpents across the trail. They followed the tracks until the forest opened into a rocky clearing. That's when they saw it. At first, it looked like a statue. A perfect replica of a velociraptor, lean, low-bodied, with feathers lining its arms and tail. Then it blinked. Yellow eyes narrowed with intelligence. It didn't run. It watched. Elena froze. Theo reached for his camera, but the raptor tilted its head slightly, then stepped back into the foliage, vanishing like smoke. "Did you see that?" Theo whispered. "I saw it," Elena replied, her voice low. That was real. Excitement boiled in her chest. If velociraptors had survived in isolation, it would rewrite everything: biology, evolution, history. But her thoughts turned quickly. If one raptor was alive, could there be more? How had they survived? What had kept them hidden? They returned to camp with the news, but not everyone believed. Some wanted to leave immediately. Others wanted to find more proof. The raptor had made no move to attack, but its presence unsettled them all. Elena stared at the jungle that night, her fingers trembling around a cup of cold coffee. She wasn't just chasing fossils anymore. Something living, intelligent, and deadly had found them first. And it was watching. The atmosphere in the camp grew tense after the sighting. Some team members wanted to leave immediately. Dr. Elena Cruz stood her ground. She wasn't going anywhere without answers. She believed they were on the brink of a discovery that could change the world. The next day, Elena assembled a tracking party, herself, Theo, Sarah, the team's tech expert, and Malik, a survival specialist. With motion sensors, tranquilizer rifles, and sound recorders, they entered the jungle at dawn. The forest was alive with sound. Insects buzzed, birds called out, but every now and then, there was a deeper noise. A rustle that came too quick. A breath too heavy. Theo pointed out more tracks, leading toward a moss-covered ravine. They descended slowly. Vines hung like curtains, and the sunlight barely reached the bottom. Sarah placed small cameras in the trees, hoping to capture movement. As they pushed forward, they found a carcass, half a deer, stripped clean with surgical precision. Definitely not a jaguar, Malik said, crouching by the remains. Too clean. Elena agreed. The bite marks matched raptor dentition. More than one set. That meant there were others. Theo lifted his head. Do you hear that? The group fell silent. There was a low chirping. Not a bird, it had rhythm and pattern, like a language. The sound grew louder. Branches moved above them. Sarah gripped her rifle. Suddenly, a shape dropped from the trees. Malik fired. The dart struck bark. A blur dashed into the bush. Theo fell back. Elena raised her flashlight. For a moment, two eyes stared at her from the undergrowth. Then they were gone. They're not just hunting, she whispered. They're testing us. Back at camp, footage from the motion cameras confirmed it. A small pack of 3 velociraptors moved through the jungle, each feathered and agile. They were tracking the team, staying just out of sight. Sarah enlarged one image. A raptor looked straight into the camera. Its eye gleamed with intelligence. They weren't acting like wild animals. They were communicating, coordinating. Malik wanted to double the perimeter. Theo was excited and wanted to follow the trail again. Sarah argued they needed more data before making any decisions. But Elena sat quietly, thinking. These raptors evolved separately, she said. Their isolation has made them smarter. Possibly more dangerous. Later that evening, loud shrieks echoed from the eastern ridge. Elena and Malik rushed toward the sound. One of the outer motion sensors had been destroyed. A shredded camp bag lay near the bushes. Something had come within 10 meters of the sleeping tents. No one slept that night. The next day, Elena decided to build a decoy, a trap with raw meat, cameras, and tranquilizer darts rigged to tripwires. They hoped to lure one raptor in for study. It was risky, but they needed a closer look. Sarah and Theo set up the trap in the clearing near the ravine. Hours passed. Nothing. As dusk settled, the team watched the monitors. Suddenly, the camera buzzed. A shape entered the clearing. A raptor stepped into view. It looked at the meat, then looked straight at the camera, not by chance, but deliberately. Then it walked around the tripwires, careful and graceful. It didn't take the bait. It approached the camera and swiped it down with its claw. The screen went black. They had underestimated them. These things are planning, Sarah muttered. They're not just animals. They're learning from us. Elena agreed. They couldn't rely on tricks anymore. They needed a different approach. The next morning, Theo disappeared. His tent was empty, his gear was there, and only his boots were missing. The team split up to search. Elena followed the trail leading north through thick brush. A few drops of blood marked the leaves. Panic hit her like a wave. They reached a wide gorge. In the mud, Theo's footprints stopped. Nearby were deep claw marks. They heard movement behind them. Malik turned fast, aiming his rifle. 3 velociraptors stood in the brush. Silent. Still. Elena raised her hands. We don't want to hurt you. One stepped forward, the largest. It tilted its head and made a soft chirping sound. Then it turned and vanished. When they returned to camp, Theo was there. Alive. Shaken. They didn't kill me, he whispered. They surrounded me. Watched me. Like I was a puzzle. Then, they let me go. Elena stared into the jungle. This wasn't a simple case of rediscovered predators. This was a new species, one that was studying them, measuring them. The real question wasn't how they had survived. It was why they had revealed themselves now. And what they wanted. Night fell heavy over the camp. No one spoke much. Theo sat near the fire, his eyes still haunted. Malik sharpened a machete out of habit, while Sarah recalibrated the motion sensors. Elena studied the map, marking the points where the raptors had been seen. Their movement wasn't random, it was deliberate. A pattern. A perimeter. Suddenly, all the camp lights cut out. Total darkness. Then came the sounds. A low trill. Branches cracking. A thud on the far tent. Elena, Sarah whispered. They're here. Elena grabbed the emergency flare and ignited it, casting a red glow across the clearing. A shadow darted behind the supply crates. Another dashed between the trees. We're surrounded, Malik said, raising his rifle. Don't shoot unless you have to. Elena shouted. They haven't attacked yet. But then, one of the raptors lunged. It moved like lightning, hitting the edge of the tent and ripping it open. Malik fired. The dart missed. Sarah screamed. A second raptor tackled her to the ground. Theo jumped to her aid, swinging a broken pipe. Elena ran toward the chaos, waving the flare. The firelight caught the raptor's eye, it paused, unsure. Elena threw the flare down between them. The raptor backed off, hissing. The largest of them, the one that had stared into the camera, stepped into view. It didn't flinch from the fire. Its gaze swept across the humans. Calculating. Elena met its stare. We're not your enemies, she said quietly. The creature blinked. Behind it, 2 more raptors crept forward, but not to attack. They flanked their leader. Holding position. We're in their territory, Theo said, panting, and they're testing how far we'll go. No, Elena whispered. They're trying to see what we'll do when we're afraid. Just then, the fire flared up, catching the edge of the tent. Flames rose fast, illuminating the clearing like day. The raptors froze for a moment. Then one of them, younger, less patient, lunged straight at Malik. A shot rang out. This time, the dart hit. The raptor staggered back, roaring, then collapsed. The others shrieked. The leader let out a piercing cry, not of rage, but grief. And something changed. The pack retreated, not in panic, but with purpose. Two of them dragged their fallen kin with almost human precision. One held the tranquilized raptor's tail while another gripped its shoulder. In seconds, they vanished into the trees. Silence fell. Elena's heart pounded. Not from fear, but from awe. "Did you see that?" she said. "They cared," Sarah whispered. "They didn't just run. They protected one of their own." Theo nodded. "They didn't kill us. They could have, easily. But they didn't." Elena realized the truth. This species hadn't just survived, they had evolved emotionally, socially. They had bonds. Maybe even empathy. She walked to the edge of the clearing and picked up a feather left behind. It shimmered in the firelight, black with violet edges. She held it tight. "This isn't the end," she said. "This is the beginning of something we don't fully understand yet." Malik looked out into the dark forest, then turned back to the others. "What now?" Elena took a deep breath. "We observe. We learn. And we never treat them like monsters again." The jungle remained quiet, but the presence of the raptors lingered, not as threats, but as guardians. Intelligent. Proud. Watching. Waiting. The next morning, the camp was quiet. Ashes smoldered where the tents had burned. The jungle around them felt alive in a new way. Birds returned to their chirping. The breeze moved calmly through the trees. No one had slept. Elena sat with the feather in her hands, watching the sun rise. The jungle didn't feel like a threat anymore, it felt sacred. Alive with purpose. Malik gathered what supplies hadn't been damaged. "We'll have to radio for a supply drop. We lost half the food and all the satellite uplinks." Theo helped him, slower than usual, limping from the bruises on his legs. "It's worth it," he said. "We saw something people won't believe." Sarah examined the broken motion trackers. "We're not just observing them anymore," she said. "We're part of their world now. And they let us walk away." Elena nodded. She walked to the tree line, where the raptors had vanished. No sounds came from the forest, but the stillness carried meaning. Not absence, awareness. They were still there. Watching. "They trusted us," she said aloud. "Or at least, they spared us. That's the beginning of trust." The team gathered around the charred fire pit. Decisions had to be made. They could leave, call for extraction, report the incident, and let others take over. Or they could stay. Keep learning. "We can't control them," Malik said. "Not with cages or weapons." That was never the answer. "No one's trying to," Elena said. "But we can understand them. Record their behaviors. Study the way they move as a pack. The way they protect their own." Theo lit the last emergency flare and placed it upright in the center of the camp. "Let this be a signal," he said. "We're still here. But not as intruders." Sarah smiled. A truce. Later that day, they discovered something remarkable. Near the river, where they had first encountered the raptors, lay a new pattern in the mud, a circle of claw marks and feathers placed carefully in the shape of an eye. "They left this," Elena said. Malik tilted his head. "A warning?" "No," she replied. "A message. They're watching us. They're saying they see us. It was clear now, the velociraptors were far more than hunters. They communicated with signs, sounds, symbols. They had leadership. They had memory. They could feel loss. And more than anything, they were beginning to show signs of something deeper. Recognition. Mutual awareness. Perhaps even respect. Over the following days, the camp became quieter. No more fences. No more weapons in hand. Just observation. Writing. Recording. Every night, the raptors came closer. Never into the light, but near enough for their silhouettes to flicker just beyond the trees. And then, one night, the alpha stepped forward. It stood at the edge of the clearing and stared at Elena. No sound. No movement. She stepped forward, slowly, stopping a safe distance away. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then the raptor dipped its head, just slightly, and vanished back into the forest. Elena smiled. Now they know who we are, she said. And we're just beginning to know them. Weeks passed. The jungle that once felt hostile now felt like a classroom. Elena and her team adapted, living with fewer machines, relying more on instinct and observation. The velociraptors had not attacked again. In fact, they had grown bolder in their presence, often watching from a distance, sometimes leaving behind strange patterns of feathers, stones, or claw marks. Each symbol became a riddle that challenged human understanding. The team stopped trying to label the raptors as just predators. They were more than hunters. They were thinkers. Problem solvers. Survivors of ancient worlds who had evolved into something astonishing. One evening, Elena stood on a ridge overlooking the valley. Below her, a group of raptors moved in the twilight, graceful and alert. She could tell which one was the alpha now. Its movements were measured, leading but never forcing. The others followed because they chose to. Behind her, Sarah approached quietly. We've documented enough to change everything. When we return, this will rewrite what we know about dinosaur intelligence. Elena nodded. But part of me wonders if we even have the right to publish it all. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You mean, keep it hidden? I mean, maybe some mysteries deserve to stay wild, Elena said. We always take what we learn and twist it into control. Captivity. Maybe this time, we just, let it be. Back at the camp, Malik and Theo were finalizing their logs. The decision had been made. They would leave. Not because they were driven out, but because the time was right. They had earned something rare, trust, and leaving without exploiting it was their way of honoring it. The final day came quietly. As they packed their last bags, Elena looked back at the jungle one more time. A familiar glint of eyes stared at her from the shadows. The alpha raptor. She didn't move. Just watched. And again, the raptor gave that small dip of the head. This time, Elena returned the gesture. A silent exchange. One apex species to another. Equal. Separate, yet aware. The team boarded the extraction helicopter with no fanfare. No fossils. No trophies. Just journals full of notes, audio logs of soft rustling sounds, and videos showing flashes of raptors in the brush. Back home, the data was analyzed. Experts debated its meaning. The patterns in the feathers. The repeated shapes made in mud. The coordinated behaviors. Some scoffed, calling it coincidence. Others were awestruck. But Elena knew what she had seen. And more importantly, what she had felt. The story of velociraptors was no longer one of monsters. It was one of sentience. Of evolution beyond survival. Of a species that didn't vanish completely, but instead adapted in silence, in shadows, until someone finally stopped to watch and listen. In the end, the team published only part of their findings. Enough to ignite curiosity, not enough to trigger interference. The location of the valley remained classified. No traps were set. No cages built. Only a quiet promise among 4 humans and a pack of raptors. We will not disturb you. You have earned your world. We were only visitors. And in the rustling leaves of the jungle, the soft tap of clawed feet, and the mysterious arrangement of feathers left in quiet corners of the earth, the raptor's story continues. Still wild. Still hidden. But never again forgotten.